Alright, let's talk about the date object. The date object is a very useful built-in object in JavaScript that allows us to work easily with date data. And if you stop to think about dates and how they're different than normal numbers, I challenge you to tell me right off the bat, how old are you in days? And that's a very complex mathematical procedure to figure out, because you have to figure out which months between your birthday and today had 31 days, 30 days, or 28 days, or maybe 29 days, how many leap years were there, things like that. And so we're going to use the date object, which makes working with date material a little bit simpler. But it's a little different than anything we've done to this point. So I have a couple of notes here. What we're going to do is we're going to set up our own variables. And when we var them, we're going to tell the computer that we want it to be set up as an instance of the date object. So instead of just storing regular old numbers like we have to this point, what we can do is we can store date information that has a compartment for seconds, and it has a compartment for the day of the month, it has a compartment for the year. And so we can go ahead and var our chosen variable name, and we set it equal to a new instance of the date object. I want you to notice a couple of things. The D is capitalized in date. If you do lowercase, it's not going to work. And also, this is one of the rare statements in JavaScript that will not have a semicolon. I've accidentally added one to our second example. So when you write var our date and you set it as a new date, when you're setting up objects like that, you're actually not going to use a semicolon at the end of it. Now this right here, if I don't put in a date, by default, when that statement runs, it retrieves the current date and time from the computer where it's running. So in this case, it's running in the browser, so whichever browser gets a hold of this, it would pull the time and date from the local computer. If we want to feed a certain date into it, we can do that as an argument to the method. So I can set up a variable named myBday, say that it's going to take on the form of a date object, and I want you to automatically fill in the information that I've given you. And if I don't fill in all the information like hours and seconds and things like that, then it will automatically set those to 0. So once we have the variable in the date format, what it allows us to do is not only to have those compartments that store things like years and seconds and hours, but it also allows us to use the methods that are associated or built into the date object. And so if we take our date, which is the current date, and we do the method ourDate.getDay, it's going to return a value from 0 to 6, which corresponds to the days of the week. Today is a Monday, so it starts counting on Sunday with 0, so it will return the number 1 from this statement here. GetDate returns the date of the month, so today is the 28th, it would return 28. GetMonth is a little squirrely. It also returns a value from 0 to 11 instead of 1 to 12. JavaScript is what's called a C-based language, and when C was invented, the users or the developers started counting with the number 0 instead of the number 1. So we're going to have to manipulate this a little bit. A lot of times if we want it to display the correct month, what we'll do is add 1 to that number to allow us to offset that counting with 0. Get full year will return the 4-digit year. You want to there is a get year. It's deprecated or no longer in use because of the whole Y2K fiasco. Very rarely do you write programs anymore that use just a 2-digit year. Get time and get hours are probably the things that we'll use the most, but you can get down to seconds and milliseconds and things like that. So that's a quick look at the date object. We're going to do two very easy forward examples in this just to show you ways to do the date object, and then in the next lesson what we'll do is we'll actually start subtracting dates and working with some of that complex math. So let's go ahead and set up a simple program that is going to write the date in the format that we want it to. We want it to write today is 7/28/2014. So what we're going to do is retrieve all of those things from the current date and concatenate together the slashes that we normally see in a date format. So we need to go ahead and set up our variable. Let's go ahead and name that today is. And we're going to set that up as the date object. That allows today is to inherit those methods, but also that storage function of holding date information. So then we're going to break out the parts because we need it to say 7, we need the month, the date, and the year. So we're going to go ahead and set up variables for all of those. So we're going to say var today date is equal to today is dot get date. That's that built-in method of the date object, which today is our instance of the date object. So when we set it up, it automatically grabs the current time and date, and we are going to retrieve the date function, or the date part of today is, and store it in our variable. So we're going to do that for all of them. We're going to say var today month is going to be equal to today is dot get month. It'll retrieve the number from 0 to 1. I'm sorry, 0 to 11. So remember, I told you I was going to offset that by adding 1 to it. So it retrieves the number 0 to 11. It adds 1 to it, and then stores that value in our variable here. So the last thing we need to do is we need to var today year, and we're going to set that to today is dot get full year, and it'll retrieve the year 2014, which is stored in today is, and it'll store it in our new variable. So all we have to do now is document.write and concatenate this together. We can say today is space concatenate on today month plus a slash plus today date plus a slash, not a 1, a slash plus today year, and let's go ahead and add on a period to end our sentence and close our parentheses. And because this is not in a function, this will run when the program loads. Notice it's just in script tag, so it would be the first thing to appear on the page. In this case, the only thing to appear on our page. So when we preview it in Firefox, we wait for it to load, and we should see our statement of today is 7/28/2014. So that's one example of how you can use the date object. I'm going to do another quick one that allows us to use our if-then statements. And we're going to greet a person based on what time of the day it is. So we're going to go ahead and just delete that. We're going to set up another variable. Let's leave it var today is, and let's go ahead and set that to a new date just like we did before. And instead of retrieving all the information, all we're going to do is retrieve the hour of the day. And this is going to retrieve a number from 0 to 24. It is going to do it in military time. And what we're going to say that if the hour is between this hour and this hour, say good morning. If it is between this and this, say good afternoon, and otherwise we'll say good evening. So let's go ahead and get the hours. We need the hours to do those comparisons on. So let's just say today hours is equal to today is dot get hours. And so what that does is it retrieves the current hour of the time and stores it in our variable named today hours. So then we can start using our if statements. we can say if today hours, oops, I forgot my parentheses. If today hours, let's go ahead and start with evening, it's easier to work backwards, is greater than 17, which would be 5 o'clock in the afternoon, then let's document.write good evening. Close that curly brace. Else, if today hours, forgot my parentheses again, didn't I? If today hours is greater than 12, so it'll be between 12 or 17 at this point, we're going to have it say document.write good afternoon. Need some quotes around that. Good afternoon. Else, forgot to close the curly brace. Else, what we're going to do, it's going to return something between 0 and 24. So if it's not greater than 17 and it's not greater than 12, then that means that it's less than 12. And so everything else, what we're going to do is document.write good morning. Pretend like that is not a typo, and we will go from there. So just to tell you, it is 4:58 in the afternoon right now. If we preview this, it's going to grab that time off of my computer. And it says good afternoon. If we were to sit here and wait 2 or 3 minutes until it became after 5 o'clock, then when we reloaded this, it would actually say good evening based on the time that it prefers. So it actually allows you to customize, not only get their name maybe, but you could say good afternoon Leah instead of just hey Leah, something like that. Alright, so that is the introduction to using the date object, and the next one, what we're going to do is we are going to subtract dates. We're going to do 2 examples where we figure out how old we are in days. And we're also going to do an example very similar to your lab where we subtract things to determine when something was or when something is.